Conquering modals in passive voice. No more mistakes. Hello, language learners. Today, we're going to embark on an interesting journey, diving deep into the world of English grammar. We'll be focusing on an often confusing topic: the misuse of modal verbs in the passive voice. So, if you've been struggling with this concept, stick around. This video is made just for you. First, let's briefly recap what we mean by modal verbs and passive voice. Modal verbs are auxiliary verbs that express necessity, possibility, permission, or ability. Some examples include can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will, and would. The passive voice, on the other hand, is a grammatical construction where the subject of the sentence receives the action, rather than performing it. When we use modal verbs in the passive voice, we're combining these two concepts. For example, instead of saying, "The chef must prepare the meal," active voice, we might say, "The meal must be prepared by the chef," passive voice. Now, let's move on to some common mistakes that learners often make when using modal verbs in the passive voice. Mistake 1. Incorrect verb form after modal. One of the most common mistakes is using the incorrect verb form after the modal verb. Remember, we should always use the base form of the verb after a modal verb. Incorrect. The documents must be signed. Correct. The documents must be signed. Mistake 2. Omitting be. Another common mistake is omitting be when forming passive sentences with modals. The word be is crucial for forming the passive voice. Incorrect. The cake should bake at 180 degrees. Correct. The cake should be baked at 180 degrees. Mistake 3. Using active voice instead of passive. Lastly, using active voice when passive voice is needed can be a common error. Incorrect. Someone must clean the room. Correct. The room must be cleaned. Now, let's talk about how you can avoid these mistakes. Tip 1. Memorize the structure. The structure for using modal verbs in the passive voice is modal verb plus be plus past participle. Keep this structure in mind while forming sentences. Tip 2. Practice, practice, practice. The best way to learn is through practice. Make sure to write and speak using the passive voice with modal verbs as much as possible. Tip 3. Proofread. Lastly, always proofread your sentences to ensure you haven't made any of these common mistakes. And there we have it. We hope that this video has been helpful in understanding and avoiding common mistakes with modal verbs in the passive voice. Remember, it's perfectly okay to make mistakes when learning. What's important is that you keep learning from them. Keep practicing and you'll get the hang of it in no time. Happy learning, everyone!